Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. Pretty special guest. John Stein's been on with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. He's a fisheries biologist up here in Northwest Arkansas. He's been on a few times, but he's back because the walleye are biting. People got questions, and so this is a good time to connect with John, find out about walleye fishing. Maybe even he'll give you some tips on catching them. And then we'll just touch base on crappie and the stripers just at the end. So if you don't want to hear about the walleye, you got to stay tuned till the very end.
There you go.
So, tell us about walleye fishing. Are they reproducing? How's that working on beaver?
Yeah, so we have a couple of populations of walleye up here in Northwest Arkansas. The first is Beaver Lake, the fish that are in Beaver Lake that run into the river arms to spawn. Then there's also a pretty good walleye fishery in Table Rock that runs out of Table Rock Lake into some Arkansas waters like Beaver Tailwater, the Kings River. So lots of opportunities for walleye fishing around here. Beaver Lake, they run up into, people can catch them at War Eagle Creek. They'll run out of the lake into War Eagle Creek, but they'll also run up into the White River Arm. Anglers can catch them around the Twin Bridges or Highway 45 access. Normally spawning takes place, we know on the Kings River, the peak of the spawn is around the second week of March. So, 15th to 17th of March, and that's on the Kings.
Wow.
White River, it's a little earlier. We've done some sampling on the White River, and it was like around the 10th or 12th, and it all depends on the water temperature. And,
I got you.
And if we have a really cold spring, it can be it can push it back a little bit.
Right, but that's still March. March 10th,
it's normally the second to third week in March.
So this is going to air this Sunday, so it'll give people plenty of time to go and get some lures and get ready.
That's right.
Tell us about reproduction on Beaver Lake. So are you having to stock the walleye, or are they reproducing naturally?
So we did a stock contribution study and found that 60% of the fish that we catch in the lake have been stocked. So pretty good numbers of fish are surviving from our stocking. And so we believe that's because the population is fairly young. Compared to like Table Rock or Bull Shoals.
Right.
One of the first year classes we've seen, what was really big was in 2008. And so, it's a young fishery compared to like Table Rock and Bull Shoals. They've been around for many years, 30, 40 years. We started stocking walleye in Beaver Lake around the early 2000s. And, for some reason, when the lake was built, there were walleye in the White River, but when the lake was built, they didn't do well in the lake. You'd have a few, anglers would catch a few every now and then, but not huge numbers. So we started stocking them around between 2000 2002, and it took a few years, and in 2008 we had a really big year class, and since then we've seen several really good year classes, and it's continually getting better. Right. And as the population gets older, you're going to start seeing those bigger fish like you see in Table Rock, coming out of Table Rock. I saw one the other day that was 12 pounds caught coming out of Table Rock. So we should be seeing that here pretty soon in Beaver, some big ones coming on.
So the ones that year class, that big year class, are they the ones that are 16, 17 inches now?
Well, those 2008 fish, the fish from 2008, they'd be big. They're probably the ones, they're probably 8-10 pound fish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's the growth rate on walleye?
So for walleye, they grow really fast in the south, especially in this area of the state. So they'll get up to about average size of 10 inches in their first year. Really? Yeah. Which, if you compare that to some lakes in the upper Midwest, they may be 3 years old at that size, 2 or 3 years old at that size. So, they can average 10 inches. Some of them will be 12. And then you'll see them, anywhere from 15 to 17 the second year. And then by the third year, they're up to 18 inches pretty much. The majority of them are up to 18 inches around the third year, between the third and fourth year. So they can
Wow.
Males grow slower, females grow a lot faster.
Really?
And so, yeah, they grow fast. And
That is really fast.
Yeah. And that's good because, in 3 years, if you have a big year class, if we have a big year class in the lake, we know 3 to 4 years later, most of them are going to be over 18 inches, which is the minimum length limit.
What's the numbers that you stock in this lake then?
So we stock 100,000 walleye fingerlings every other year. And it seems to be producing a pretty good fishable population. We think as over time, as the population gets older, we're probably going to have to go back and look at the stock contribution in the future. And there may be a ton of natural reproduction as the population gets really big, and we may not need to stock in the future, but right now we still are.
Let's talk about the river arms. You talk about walleye running up there and reproducing there. Would they not reproduce like in Montanay or Nelson's or Indian Creek or Prairie Creek?
Yeah, and
how much flow do they need?
Right. Most people think that walleye, all your walleye are going to run up the river arms and spawn in flowing water. There's a big population that does that. But we've seen this on Bull Shoals, Norfolk, and other lakes, and in the White River chain. Their walleye will spawn down by the dam on kind of cobble, pea-sized gravel. They don't need flowing water.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, they'll actually, if there may be lakes in the Midwest that doesn't have really good flowing water all the time, they'll spawn on riprap or they'll spawn on hard substances.
Yeah.
Structure in the water, and they'll naturally reproduce, and just with no flowing water.
Are those windblown banks that they're trying to, or does it?
Mainly it's pea gravel.
It's just
they're looking
subsurface.
they're looking for a certain type of substrate to put it on to spawn on, because when walleye spawn, their eggs become and their eggs are fertilized by a male. They fall to the bottom and they stick. They're really sticky, so they'll stick to rocks or. It's better if they're spawning on riprap down by the dam or some pea gravel or some bigger rocks, because that way they're not going to get over, I guess, covered up with silt. Right. If it's in a nice rocky area and there isn't much silt around, they're going to do a lot better.
So does the male recruit the female, or do they naturally end up in the same area?
They end up in the same area. Let's say in the White River. What'll happen is, and the best time to fish is right now in February, before the spawn actually starts out. Right. Okay. But so what'll happen is their males already in the tailwater or below Beaver Lake. They're up in the White River right now. They're at War Eagle Creek. The males show up first. And then when a female gets, females will start staging in deeper water. Right. And once they're ready to spawn, they'll come up, release their eggs, and then they'll leave. And it happens, it can happen overnight. They just are ready to spawn. They'll, one female will come up, spawn with males that are already there, and then it'll leave. So, the best time to fish for them is actually before the spawn, because during the spawn, they've got other things on their mind,
Gotcha.
So that's why right now you see people catching pretty good numbers of fish and bigger fish. Because they're out, the females are staging. You can catch a lot of males in the tailwater right now, or in the river arms right now. But the bigger females are probably, a little further down the lake.
I see. So let's talk about water clarity. So, because below the dam, the water clarity is very good. And here up in the river, we have some color. There's some turbidity in the water, kind of a high rating, I would say, kind of a cloudy. So does that make a difference in how they spawn? You got this dirty water, or is it affecting more of how the angler needs to fish?
It's probably affecting more how the angler is fishing, maybe more bright lures. We noticed that just from doing some sampling in the White River above Beaver Lake that they seem to run a few days earlier than when than they do below the dam. And the reason why that is simply because if they're generating water through the dam on beaver tailwater, it can be really cold. And so,
I gotcha.
So let's say the White River is the second week of March when there's a lot of fish in there, a lot of walleye in there. Kings River's, like I said, around the 15th to 17th of March.
Right.
Beaver tailwater is a week later. It's normally all the way into, there'll be walleye spawning there the 22nd through the 29th of March.
Wow.
Yeah. So to get the brood stock or the eggs that we need for the hatchery, we actually do a spawning project either on the Kings River or on Beaver tailwater, and we'll take an electrofishing boat in, and we'll catch male and female walleye, and if they're ready to spawn, we'll spawn them on the bank right there in the pans, fertilize the eggs, and then take them back to the hatchery to raise them out to stock back in the lake. And so we can normally hit the Kings River first,
right?
And then if we have too high water, if it gets really warm too fast, we can always go back to the tailwater, a week later.
Well, good. I think everyone wants to know, when you talk about sampling, is it a rod and a reel? You go out there, the rod and reel and the jig and a jig and minnow, and you're out there fishing, and you're like, boy, this is tough work. I got to do sampling here. Oh, I'm going to sample the smallmouth while I'm here.
No, when we're talking about sampling, we're actually using an electrofishing boat that puts electricity in the water.
All right.
So I wish it was rod and reel fishing, but
you need to put that in.
Yeah, I know.
Start telling them this is this new scientific way of seeing if you can get them with these minnows.
That's right.
Will they bite minnows better than jigs? Yeah. You could go back and forth. I guess.
That's true. But, yeah. We've actually found that like you're talking about different types of sampling gear on our smallmouth bass streams and rivers. We've actually found that we'll get a group of people and go out and fish the stretch we're going to electrofish the same week. And we can triple our catch rates on just fishing with a rod and reel than we do with electrofishing, because a lot of times electrofishing for smallmouth, they'll hear you coming in the daytime and they'll run and get under a rock, and you won't ever see them again. They'll get up under a rock. So there may be a possibility to do that in the future.
Sign me up. Yeah. I'll go to work for the state. What do you do? Well, I do sampling. Yeah. I have to go fish the Kings River.
That's right.
I have to go fish Crooked Creek. I can name some good places to go down to that would be. Do you guys do anything with the mulberry? Or is that pretty much
that's
just
in a
left?
different district, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Got too far out of there, but I figured if there was one stream that didn't get that much fishing, it might be that, because of the current in the river was like not very safe for most anglers to be kayaking around.
It can be treacherous at times.
Yeah. So let's visit a little bit about crappie fishing. What's going on with crappie fishing? How about you did some sinking of the brush early? What's going to happen this year with that?
So in 2023, we actually got a grant from Bass Pro Shops,
right?
And they gave us $275,000. Bass Pro Shops did, and we're actually buying a new habitat barge and a skid loader for doing habitat projects statewide. So to get that funding, we said we were going to do 3 major habitat projects in the White River, and one of them's in Beaver Lake. So we'll be doing a 2-week fish habitat project in December of next year, and we'll be focusing on this part of the lake, the upper end.
Okay, in 2023.
2023.
The end of this year.
It'll be in December of 2023, but we also have several small projects listed for 2023 that won't be as big, but we'll still be putting quite a few structures in the lake.
Right. Fish cleaning structures?
We have
fish cleaning things?
We are actually I'm going to be budgeting for in our fisheries in our capital expenses. I'm going to be budgeting for a courtesy dock at Highway 412.
Yeah, excellent.
And then one at Highway 12 up there in that end of the lake. But we're also we've got permission from the Corps to we're designing a fish cleaning station at Hickory Creek, and that's in the works right now. We may not get it done in 2023. We may have to budget for it in 2024, but that's something that we're looking at, is getting a fish cleaning station there at Hickory Creek.
Well, that's good. All that's good. So the money that you use for that, tell us, where does that come from? Does it come from fishing licenses? Where does it come from?
So depending on what we're doing, the fish cleaning station would probably come from our general budget, or our capital budget that's from fishing license sales, the sales tax. The other, maintenance or improving area, boating access can come from marine fuel tax money.
Okay.
And marine fuel tax it's an excise tax that people pay at the marina. How much more gas is at a marina?
That's right.
Well, that money, there's a pretty good amount of tax there that goes straight back into the states to improve boating access. So we'll be using some of that money for it as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So people, all those places you're talking about are places that people go there right now, but to enhance where they go, and it'll make things better, easier for anglers, safer. Right. So tell us, there's still time to make some money, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, we have probably about a month left on the striped bass exploitation study, where we tagged fish in Beaver, Washita, and Norfolk Lake striped bass. It's with it's a bright kind of pinkish red tag, and they have 2 on either side. And if you catch a tagged striped bass in Beaver Lake, Washita, or Norfolk, you call a number on the tag, and once you answer a few questions, you'll get a check for $100 in the mail. Basically, it's to evaluate how many fish are being harvested,
right? And
we may be able to use it in the future to help us draft new regulations for the striped bass fisheries.
All right.
In these 3 lakes.
How many tags have been turned in on Beaver Lake?
So we've had 47 tags returned on Beaver. The next was Norfolk, and it was around, I think it was 28 tags on Norfolk, and then 14 on Washita. So it's kind of telling us, one thing it's telling us right off the bat is we think we have more fishing pressure for stripers on Beaver, and we saw that in the Creel survey too. So it's something that's going to help us decide if we needed to do a regulation change, make a stricter minimum length limit in the cool months,
right,
or something like that. It may be helping drive, hey, we need to be stocking more than 200,000. That's something we're trying to determine out of that study.
Right. And how about the white bass population? They seem to be spotty this past year and this year at the start. Yeah. What's up with that?
I think a lot of people, the issue we have with all these high water events in the spring is you'll get white bass into the upper end of the lake, and they'll start coming in really good, and anglers will start catching them, and then we'll get a flood. Right. And then it just messes it up for a while. So we still think some of our sampling we've done, they're the most prolific fish in the lake.
Right.
We still see a lot of them. A lot of people complain about, hey, we don't see them pushing shad up to the surface anymore. And we don't see that very much, but maybe it's because they have so many shad to eat. They don't have to push them to the surface. I mean, you've seen it. A lot of anglers have seen the amounts of shad in the lake is through the roof right now, we think. And it's because of these high water events and the nutrients coming in during flooding. So there's a possibility that, back before 2008, when we've had all these high water events, you would see fish, you'd see them schooling in the summer, pushing shad up, and we don't see it very much anymore. Right. And I'm wondering if they don't have to do that.
It's possible. There's so much shad. Yeah. All the fish are benefiting from the shad populations that we're getting. Harder for the anglers.
Yeah.
But it's good because of the population. To support them.
Mm-hmm.
that takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. Of course, we talked about everything that PICO Lures can catch. You can catch walleye, stripers, crappie, coarse crappie. We got all kinds of lures for that. And, catfish. We didn't talk about catfish. You'll have to come on one day and talk about catfishing. But anyway, anything you want to catch, all the game fish that are out there swimming, no matter where you live, no matter where you're at, whichever lake you're at, PICO Lures got something. Check them out at picolures.com. John, if they wanted to find out more about what you're doing, where would they go? What's your social media contact?
So we have Fisheries Northwest Arkansas it's a game and fish one Facebook page. They can go there. We also have you can go just to our Arkansas Game and Fish website. And get information. But our Facebook page is really popular. And if you just type in Fisheries NWA, game and fish, you'll find it.
All right. Well, perfect. Appreciate it. Like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.